nation, right here. The next person who's going to be speaking is Devlin. Sean is a comedian and he's a media maker. He was recently, Harper was in town a couple of days ago, if you remember, and he was arrested on Thursday when he attended a Harper media event in Surrey wearing a shirt that said Alan should be here. Shame on Harper.
A Kurdish person, an Eritrean person, and a Filipino person walk into a bar. And before they can even say anything, the bartender says, "There's no space for you here." And there's no punchline to that joke because that bartender was an asshole. As we stand here, there are 60 million refugees around the world. It's the highest number since the Second World War. And in this period, our government has reduced the number of refugees being accepted by 30%. They've done this in a lot of ways. One of the most recent was in 2012. They started making it mandatory for people seeking asylum to get certified by the United Nations before they can apply here. Ridiculous. That didn't have to happen until 2012. People applying for asylum are in a state of emergency. If you can imagine what it would be like if we applied that same logic to an emergency happening in our own communities. If you woke up one night and your house was on fire and you thought your children might die and you picked up the phone and you dialed 911 and on the other end they said, "Prove it." Can you go to the United Nations and get them to give you a piece of paper that proves that your house is on fire? And once you do that, it's going to be a 4-year waiting period. When we have parents putting their children into boats and sending them out into unknown waters, we have to understand that these are people who are fleeing an entire land that is on fire. And this government has the audacity to suggest that the way to solve that is by dropping bombs on that land. In 2013, we only welcomed 1,093 Syrian refugees into this country. There are millions of them. In 1979 and 1980, as a country, we moved in those 2 years to welcome over 60,000 refugees from Southeast Asia, mostly Vietnam. And we did that not by deferring responsibility to the United Nations, but by sending our own people into those war zones to sign people up and put them on planes and bring them straight here. In one 4-day period in 1980, on an island off of Malaysia, Canadian officials personally signed up over 1,200 refugees and put them on planes and brought them here. In 4 days, they brought more people here than we did in the entire year for the Syrian refugees in 2013. We're capable of that. But let's not use these past accomplishments as standards for what can be done now. Let's not buy into the promises that politicians are throwing around to try and buy our votes. There's a difference between taking a stand and taking a position. All these politicians are taking positions now. I'll do this many thousand. I'll do this many thousand. I'll outdo you. Taking a stand is doing what's necessary. And we're capable of that. I have another joke. Tell me if you've heard it. A Kurdish person, an Eritrean person, and a Filipino person walk into a bar. Before they can say anything, the bartender says, "There's no space for you here." But before they leave, all the people in that bar, the people who give that bar power, give it its business, stand up out of their seats, and they say with one voice, I see a whole lot of room here. Please come in. Thank you.